It's a great day. My name is Che Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the number one business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we are on a mission. And our mission really is to inspire, our mission is to empower, and our mission is to provide you, the hardworking entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only Shaun Mader, who's here in the building, and he'll be talking about how to build trust on teams and creating trusted leadership. What's going on, Shaun? How are you?
Hey, Che, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. It's great to see you again online. I don't get a chance sometimes to meet many folks, but you and I had a chance to meet face-to-face at Ramon's event in New York, so I'm glad you could be here. Before we get started, I know we'll be talking about trusted leadership. I'm not even sure what that means, but we're going to figure it out from you. But can you take a step back if we can? And I'm curious, what is your definition of leadership so we can all at least be on the same page today? Because leadership means different things to different people. And I know it's a loaded question, but just so we all can be on the same page for everyone watching right now, what's your definition of leadership?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think it's a term we throw around a lot. We don't think about what that actually means. And if we're to be honest, most people probably find themselves in a leadership position by getting promoted, or they start a startup and they're not really sure how to empower people to get results. So the way I define leadership is being able to create a vision that inspires others to fulfill on it, where they can see their part and where they're fulfilling on something that's personal to them. I don't know if that's a little lingo-y or not, or we want to unpack that.
Well, yeah, go ahead and unpack it if you can. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Definitely go ahead and unpack it.
Yeah, a lot of times I find leaders think they've got to have all the answers. They got to get people to do stuff. They're trying to force outcomes. They're essentially trying to get people to follow their will. And the more we do that, the more we find that there's a lot of miscommunications. There's a lot of breakdowns. You have people with a lot of pent-up issues, and they're not happy. They're not engaged. So if we look at organizations worldwide, we have record low engagement numbers. We have high turnover. We have people who know things in companies, but then they leave, and it just continues this ongoing survival pattern in companies. There's a way to flip this around, and that's what we work with leaders on, which is how do you give people challenges where they come up with a vision, are able to fulfill on it, and the leader becomes more of like a coach along the way. So instead of telling you what I want you to do, what if I work with you to see, well, okay, here's the big objective. How would you want to help fulfill on this? And make that action plan. So they belong to the employee, they belong to the person, and then it's just a matter of execution. It's a completely different paradigm to think from.
I'm curious, as you were saying that, and this might just be Che Brown, maybe I'm the only one that has this question, but I'm wondering, shouldn't leaders already know this? I mean, they were hired to be leaders. And I guess my question is, and again, I've been in corporate America in 20 years as a full-time entrepreneur, but I'm still a leader as an entrepreneur. I'm curious, why are folks still struggling with it though? I mean, shouldn't they already know this? Like, should they know to work with everybody? I mean, it's not a dictatorship anymore. So I'm just curious. Yeah, why are they struggling, man?
Well, there's a general blind spot we all have to contend with, is that a lot of what we take for granted in our business was just made up in the last 100 years. We came out of World War II with a lot of success logistically across the oceans. And well, the people who came back as the best experts at logistics and coordination of people and getting people efficient were in the military. So in our industrial era, that was really great when tasks were simple and linear. But work has become so much more complex, which means the dynamics have changed. So that top-down command and control, tree structure that we're all used to looking at works when you're giving people orders. But it starts to break down and have huge limitations when you need to bring people together to figure out complex problems and bring complex knowledge bases together and create shared understanding. Now we're in a completely different conversation. And I think, as everybody knows, this is only going to get turbocharged with the introduction of artificial intelligence into organizations, where the complexity and the uncertainty is just going through the roof.
I love it. And one of your signature pieces is trusted leadership. And when you first, I heard you mention that we met, I was like, whoa, I like a person that wants to be innovative, a person that wants to look at the world through a different lens, if I can say that.
Hmm.
Trusted leadership. Talk about that if you can for a moment. And just so you know, that there are folks that are listening right now, and a lot of our audience, a number of them are dualpreneurs. So this works for them. They work full-time jobs where they have real responsibilities, by the way, for teams and so forth, but they're also full-time entrepreneurs, right? And some of them are moms, some of them are dads, some of them have responsibilities as caregivers, or they're involved in their community, or leaders in their faith walk, and so many other areas. So when they hear the word trusted leadership, where did that concept come from, number one? And what does it mean? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, it comes out of a lot of our experience working with leaders and teams. We get brought into to figure out why a team was being ineffective, why or how to get them down the road to their next goal. And what you invariably find was a lot of issues that were simmering below the surface, where people weren't talking, they weren't communicating, they weren't working together because at the root of all of it, they didn't trust each other. People wouldn't speak up because they didn't trust they wouldn't be penalized. You had leaders who didn't trust their employees. So it was kind of going upstream. Well, what's at the root of all of this? And if we could focus on trust. Now, trust is one of those terms that everybody's probably got a different definition of. So we did a lot of work to break down what trust means in different situations. So we do have to deal with things like competency. But then there's, do we have aligned interests, shared values? We work with people on how to communicate to create trust. We train people in, how do you address those hard to address topics? Or how do you be the first one to bring it up and address the elephant in the room? And we found that when you can do that, a lot of the specific topics that you're dealing with in a company or in a relationship or on your team suddenly get addressed very easily. So it's really a different perspective to think about, is how do you change the entire ecosystem inside of which you're operating so that things move faster, you're getting clear on what's really happening, and you have people showing up in a way where you get better results faster.
I love it. I know you guys are saying, Shay, what about how do you build trust on teams? We'll get there in a moment. We're going to
Yeah.
slow down before we speed up, because some of you are like, Shay, I don't know this guy, Shaun. I didn't read the bio. I haven't Googled the guy. I have no idea who he is, but he's making sense. I like what I'm hearing, but can you slow down and have him tell us who is Shaun? What is his backstory? And then what was that defining moment? Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, he can handle a three-part question. What was that defining moment that he decided, you know what? Helping organizations with trusted leadership and building trust on teams, that's my jam. That's what I want to do. So the question, who are you? We like to know the backstory, man. And what was that defining moment that led you to doing what you're doing
Yeah.
now?
Well, this is something that you know, is that I actually had a completely different life as a creative and as a photographer for many years. And I also had a dual life where I was leading a lot of large transformational leadership programs, where I was coaching hundreds of people, training other leaders, training other coaches. And what was happening is I had this, kind of like some of your people here. I had my one business, but then I was doing my passion on the side. And what happened is I was getting brought into a lot of different companies. People were asking me, could you help me now over here? Could you help me over there? And there was this period of time where I thought I needed to know more about that specific area, like financial services, for instance, or somebody in an insurance company. And I would go in there a little bit nervous about whether I was going to be able to make any difference. But what I found time after time after time is that it was never a business issue. It was always interpersonal. And I call these our messy people problems. And most of us don't realize that it's our messy people problems that are creating a lot of our tension and our stress, both with ourselves, with our teams, and our organization at large. So that, weirdly enough, one of the big breakthroughs around seeing the role of trust happened when I was doing a photo project in the red light district in Calcutta, India. Um, it's a much wilder story, but I wound up really emaciated. I'm a really tall guy. I was 6'4", and I was down to 165 pounds. I got really sick, and I stayed in Calcutta to recuperate, and it turned into this a years-long photo project in the red light district with human trafficking victims and sex workers and their children. And there was this one woman who would never let me photograph her, and I couldn't believe it. I thought she hated my guts. Day after day, I would see her, and she would avoid me. And finally, one day, I took one of the teenagers who spoke English aside, and I said, "Would you ask her why she hates me so much?" And I watched them go back and forth, and she was getting animated and angry, and finally turns to me, and he says, "She doesn't like you because you never asked to photograph her when she's pretty." And it was this whole shock, like, oh my God. Every time I went by this woman, she was either, doing her laundry, washing up, eating. And I had no idea because I was so not present to what was going on over there with her. And it was this little moment, just this shift where I saw how oblivious I'd been being. Here, I wanted these gritty photos. I wanted this, show this harsh reality. And she wanted to be seen as beautiful and pretty. And it was in this one moment where everything transformed. Months of her being upset with me and avoiding me. And then suddenly we became good friends and we went on to do all these amazing shoots. And it just epitomized these transformational moments when we can step outside of our own view and start to see something from a different view, and how quickly an entire scenario can change on a dime. So that really became the core of what I do with teams, is getting them communicating and seeing new views, giving them tools. We work a lot with strategy, but before we get to that point, we got to get what's going on underneath the surface so that suddenly two people can look across from each other and say, you're somebody that I want to engage with and work with and sort our problems out with.
I love it, man. And great backstory. I love that. I didn't know about the part.
Yeah, it's a little unconventional.
Yeah, I think that's some cool stuff, by the way. And we're getting to a part that I think is really important, which is trust on teams. I mean, I believe that success is a team sport. You can only get so far by yourself. You may subscribe to that. I'm not sure who was the first to say it, but I say it so many times. But I believe it's so true. My question: trusted teams. Now, this is a loaded question, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to ask them to do the best they can. The time I have. How do we as leaders or entrepreneurs, or how do we build trusted teams? And everyone listening, everyone watching right now, you all can benefit. Yeah, I know you want to be a trusted leader because you want to be the cool person at the top, and that's okay. He can help you there. But for myself personally, and maybe I'm the only one, I'm thinking, wow, how do I build trust amongst the teams who have to really execute every single day to make what we want a reality for the impact? So my question: how do you build trusted teams? I don't know if you can give us 1, 2, or 3 steps in the time that you have, man. But
I'm gonna try
and unpack that.
I'm gonna fail at this to do it in a short amount of time. But I'm gonna say it from two sides. If you're a leader, this is your job to create this conversation that we value trust here. You have to be proactive, because one thing I see that most leaders forget is that everybody is watching the leader to figure out how things are done in this group. You set the tone for everything. And while we all think trust is good and it's necessary and it's vital, we never talk about it directly. So we give people tools to do that, obviously. So if you're the leader, this has to be a proactive conversation that you're leading. And what it looks like is the leader's got to be living it too. Because if you start talking this big game about, oh, we really value trust, and they're watching you do the opposite of what you say, people are going to do the normal thing. They're going to roll their eyes and, say, well, that sounded great, but we know he's full of it, or she's full of it. Now, sometimes people don't have the luxury of being in charge of everything, and people are oftentimes grappling with, well, how do I become a trusted leader? I don't have full control of my environment. And this is where the really magical part is. The neuroscience has shown that when there is trust, trusted environments, trusting relationships, there's a whole positive neurobiochemical cascade of effects that happen in the body. You have higher rates of oxytocin, dopamine, all of the pleasure and love chemicals start to flow. So sometimes people are cynical. Well, why should I put the effort forward if I'm going to get burned? Why? because you become happier, you become more fulfilled. You start to attract the people around you and create that circle of people who value integrity and trust. And a lot of times we just find that people are a little bit cynical. They're a little bit uneasy to be that one, because a lot of times to create trust, it means giving up something first and extending some kind of vulnerability. You know, if we think about, if everybody's watching this, thinks about two people in your life that you've known for the same amount of time, but with one person you're really close with, and the other person's just a casual acquaintance. If you go back and think about it, you'll find one thing to be true. With that person that you're really close with, there was a process of what we call mutual vulnerability. And one of you started it. Somebody revealed something about themselves, and the other person recognized it, and they matched you or went one up. And that opened up the space a little bit. And then you opened up a little bit more, and they opened up a little bit more. And you started to go deeper, and suddenly you became really personally connected. And now, years later, you're much deeper. And if you look at that person who was a casual relationship, that process did not go the same way. Somebody pulled back, somebody kept it casual, somebody kept it very safe. So there's this process by which you can actually be the person who initiates building trust, and you don't have to make yourself, completely a sitting duck and completely targeted to be taken advantage of. There's ways to do this incrementally, and that's one of the things we work with people. And it takes, like, literally, Che, it's amazing. Just one little exercise, and suddenly you just find people becoming friends with somebody that they've known in the workplace for a year, but they just suddenly found out something personal about the other person, and suddenly, like, oh my God, we have to hang out, we have to do this. And it's just amazing. You see this whole new phenomenon arise. It's so simple.
Oh, man, you did it. You did it, Justin, man. You did well, especially in the time that you had. You did really well. Thanks for sharing. I'm curious, what do you enjoy most about what you're doing these days? It sounds like you light up, you get excited. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see his engine was starting to roar. He's probably got a clock in
Yeah.
his head. But he was just getting going. He could talk about it for days. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing these days?
I love working with people. I work with people one-on-one. I work with teams. I work with organizations. And more, what I'm really loving is there's a shift happening out there where people are realizing that we have to return back to our humanity to make for good business. And people desperately want it, but they don't know how. So what I really love is being part of the group of people out there who are making a business case for why a human first approach is good for business. And we're just fine. I'm kind of a nerd for this stuff. So I'm in all these different organizations with different people, and some of it's kind of like woo woo and it goes off into these areas. But, like, look, that's the whole point, is how do you bring this back to practical stuff that people can apply and improve their lives, improve their business? Because if you're not in your business to have a better life, then what are you doing it for?
I like that. And as you're speaking, I think that's a perfect segue to a segment that we have here called Today is My January 1st. Now, for those folks who tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you know what we're about to do. You can go ahead and say those magical words. Maybe you waited for it. Today is my January 1st. Happy New Year to you. Doesn't that feel good? For everyone else who's joining and want to know what in the LL Cool J is Che talking about over there, today is my January 1st represents a fresh start. It's our personal mantra here at the Happy Entrepreneur Show. It means you get a do-over. It means your past, no matter how dark and gloomy that past is or how bright and sunny that past is, the past no longer equals the future. And so my question for Shaun on the other side is really a two-part question. Number one, when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? And number two, man, maybe your life's been perfect. See, the guy's been cruising around. He had this career and that career. What was a time in your life where maybe there was a setback, if you had any, and how did you bounce back from it? What was the lesson you learned, man?
Yeah. Well, boy, when we're talking about this right before we got on here, I found myself a little while ago during COVID where it just seemed like everything fell apart. I walked away from one organization that I was deeply connected to take my next opportunity, and a legal issue had everything fall apart. Then I had a bad breakup where I was heartbroken. And then and what I had to recognize is that, you know what, no matter how successful I was working with people and leading this stuff in the past, we all have our default modes that we fall into when feel like we're failing, we're stressed out, we're dealing with a lot of other issues. And for as much as I've coached people in this and as much as I've led this, I slipped into it myself, where I had a kind of a crisis of identity. What am I doing? Where am I going? And I was very fortunate, though, because one of the things I've noticed over time is that when you have a life given by being of service, even when you're down, you've got people around you who bring you back up. And it's just a little auspicious that we're talking about this right now, because this particular person, a dear friend and mentor, happened to have passed away this weekend from brain cancer. And he was the one who intervened and interrupted me. And we're talking. He says, you know, Shaun, I've been keeping my eye on you and I've been watching you. You're falling into that pattern that you feel like you've got to do everything on your own. And the second he said that, I got present to this whole world of burden that I've been under, and just trying to be, you know, that good soldier powering through. I got this. And what I noticed is a lot of people who are leaders, who are out there to contribute to other people, they're oftentimes in charge. Sometimes the hardest thing for them is to be able to accept help themselves, to actually ask for support. And that's exactly where I'd found myself. And it just took a little bit of nudging. But first, what I had to recognize were two primary things. First, I had to get that all of those things happening really were occurring to me like they were happening to me. Like, not like being a victim, but that they were outside my control. So I really had to get that. And then the second part that was even more important was just really getting how hard I'd been being on myself. You know, like, yeah, I used to coach people in this. Like, man, if you said to other people the things you say to yourself, you'd smack yourself in the face, you know? And there I'd found myself doing the same thing to myself, even though I knew better. So being able to see all of that meaning making, all that past, and then see all that harsh judgment. And what I really got was, this is the moment to have some compassion for oneself, that I'm just another human being out there doing my best too. And it was from that moment, that was January 1st. I could see it, and boom, the second I could get that, I could start untangling this stuff and got right back to what it was that lights me up, what I really want to accomplish on the planet. And suddenly the burden just lifted off. So I thank David for that conversation, and really fitting that we're able to talk about this right now, since he's on the other side today.
Yeah, we were talking about that beforehand, man. Thanks for being so authentic. Thanks for sharing. Certainly appreciate that. You know, we have a few minutes here, and one of my favorite questions to ask is, what's one of the best pieces of advice that you've maybe ever been given? And I'll frame it for the audience so they understand you're not coming off the mountain with the 10 Commandments here, by the way.
No.
You've read so many books on your journey of life. You mentioned before you had a mentor. You've had so many mentors. You probably couldn't list all the mentors you've had. You've watched probably more videos, at least I have, than I can keep track of the hours, although they track it on the phone somehow. So my question is, if you had to give a piece of advice that's been given to you that you want to pass on to the audience, what would it be and why?
This is a good one. I would people who know me know that I say this jokingly, but I'm also serious. Is that I'm a recovering intellectual, and what I mean by that is, however life went, I had it that I wasn't smart enough, I didn't know enough, and the only protection in life was that I had to know the answer. And so maybe that did set me up for a course of really taking in a lot of stuff and trying to be knowledgeable about things. But the biggest lesson I've learned throughout all this stuff is that there's no way you can know. And the more we try to know, the more we limit what's possible for ourselves. So the advice that I got that really sums this up is, can you approach life from I don't know? And for somebody who has to know, that was a really tough one to get my head around and internalize. But if you can get the essence of what the significance of that, it's incredibly profound. I think if you can come to a topic saying, I don't know, let's look, you'll see a whole world open up. But boy, it just, Che, I got to tell you, it drives up all of my, insecurities and all of the need to have to know and like feel like I'm insecure. It's like, man, when you can admit to people you don't know, let's take a look. You're going to go on a little ride there, but something amazing is going to happen. So if that little thing you leave with and just try to play with it in your conversations with your loved ones or with your employees, new unexpected things will happen.
Yeah. As we come down the home stretch, first, I appreciate you being here. A two-part question. Number one, what type of clients are you looking to work with these days, if any? I'm not sure if your firm's taking on any clients. And number two, how can folks best connect with you? I mean, how can they stay in this conversation with you today over and beyond the time that you and I've had together?
Yeah, so a couple ways. So first, clients, we work one-on-one with leaders. We usually expand out to their teams that way. And then I also have some other great companies I work with where we do large organizational transformational projects where we go in and go soup to nuts. We do learning programs, leadership development, all of that. So probably the best way to connect me would be on LinkedIn, Shaun Mader. It's ShaunMader. And you can reach me there. Also, Shaun at ShaunMader.com. And I think the thing is we really work with people where they are. And we design things that are personal to their needs. So, if anybody's interested, of course, I'm just curious about what people are dealing with.
Yeah, man. Well, let me say thanks so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We had a chance to connect. One thing you guys know, the guy is brilliant with a camera. As you can probably see where he's lighting where he is right now, man. Don't forget, you sent me some stuff to look at, man. We got to get to connect and get some lessons, man, because I love the work and the talent you have. So thanks for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We appreciate you.
Hey, been a real pleasure, Che. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you to viewers. Thank you for tuning in, by the way, because without you, we have no show. So we appreciate you every time you show up. We appreciate you when you hit the like button. We appreciate that. But more importantly, hit the share button. Like take this message and pay it forward to another leader, another entrepreneur, someone else out there that their life or business can be impacted as a result of this message that you've heard today. I never get tired of reminding you every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that you, as you're watching, you're super incredible. That you are really amazing. Like, yes, you're a CEO, I got it. Yes, you're an entrepreneur, I got it. But you're also someone that has a big heart doing some amazing things. And no matter what's going on in your life, today indeed is your January 1st. And because of just that one reason, I believe your best is still yet to come. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. With that being said, my name hasn't changed. It's still Che Brown. That's me, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone. And we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. Thanks a lot, Shaun. We appreciate you, man. Peace, everybody. We out.